We're going to practice IELTS listening in a fun and unique way using the movie Heretic, 2024. This isn't just about watching a film. You'll also answer IELTS-style listening questions based on academic topics. What you'll get in this video: clear and slow English audio practice with real IELTS question types. A fun way to improve your listening through movies. So, grab your headphones, pen, and notebook, and let's begin this exciting IELTS listening practice with Heretic.
Part 1. Sister Barnes and Sister Paxton are two young Mormon missionaries. They go door to door to talk to people about their faith. Many people are not interested, and some are even rude. Despite this, the sisters stay hopeful and continue their work. One day, they visit the home of Mr. Reed, a man who seems friendly and curious about their beliefs. He invites them inside, saying his wife is baking a blueberry pie. The sisters are happy to find someone willing to listen. They begin to discuss religion with Mr. Reed. However, things start to feel strange. The smell of pie comes from a candle, not the kitchen. They realize they have no phone signal, and the front door is locked. Mr. Reed's questions become more intense and unsettling. He challenges their beliefs and talks about finding the one true religion. The sisters become uneasy but try to stay calm. This part of the movie sets the stage for the psychological tension that follows. The sisters' faith and courage are tested as they face unexpected challenges.
You will hear a conversation between two Mormon missionaries, Sister Barnes and Sister Paxton, who are filling out a visitor record after meeting a man called Mr. Reed. First, you have some time to look at questions 1 to 5. Now listen carefully and answer questions 1 to 5. Part 1. Sister Barnes and Sister Paxton arrive at a quiet street and stop in front of a house. The house looks simple, with white walls and a small garden. They decide to knock on the door. A man opens it. He smiles and says, "Hello, I'm Mr. Reed. Please come in." The sisters are surprised because usually people do not invite them inside. They take out their record sheet to note some details. Sister Barnes asks politely, "Can I write down your first name, sir?" The man answers, "Of course, it's David." They also ask for his family name. He says clearly, "It is Reed, spelled R-E-E-D. Inside the house, the smell of something sweet fills the air. Sister Paxton asks, "Do you live here alone or with your wife?" Mr. Reed smiles and says, "Yes, I live here with my wife, Anna." The sisters sit down and write the address. Mr. Reed says slowly, "The address is 24 Maple Street." Finally, they ask for his phone number, but Mr. Reed explains, "Oh, I don't use a mobile. Please just write my home number, 01876222341. Part 2, questions 6 to 10. The sisters continue filling the form. They want to know more about Mr. Reed's daily life. Sister Paxton asks, "What is your occupation, sir?" Mr. Reed replies slowly, "I used to be a teacher, but now I work as a writer." She then asks about his age. Mr. Reed says calmly, "I'm not very old. I'm just 45 years old." The sisters write this down. To be friendly, Sister Barnes asks about his favorite food. Mr. Reed laughs and says, "Of course, it's blueberry pie." Paxton asks if he has any pets at home. He answers, "Yes, I keep one black cat." Finally, they ask when his birthday is. Mr. Reed replies, "It's on 12th June." After completing the form, the sisters close their notebook and thank Mr. Reed for his time.
Part 2. Trapped and Tested. As the conversation with Mr. Reed continues, he becomes more controlling. He presents the sisters with 2 doors, one labelled Belief and the other Disbelief. He tells them to choose a door to leave the house. The sisters choose the Belief door, but both doors lead to the same dark basement. In the basement, they meet an old woman called the Prophet. Mr. Reed gives her a piece of blueberry pie, saying it is poisoned. The woman eats the pie and dies. Reed claims she will come back to life and share messages from the afterlife. Later, the Prophet appears to come back to life and talks about the afterlife. However, she whispers to the sisters, "It's not real," making them question everything. This part of the movie increases the suspense. The sisters are trapped and unsure of what is real. They must rely on their faith and each other to survive.
You will hear a guide explaining the events that happened when Sister Barnes and Sister Paxton continued their visit at Mr. Reed's house. First, you have some time to look at questions 11 to 15. Now listen carefully and answer questions 11 to 15, Part 1, Questions. 11 to 15, MCQs. Narration. After spending a short time in the living room, the sisters began to notice something strange. They could not see any sign of Mr. Reed's wife, even though he had mentioned her earlier. Sister Paxton whispered, "Do you smell pie?" But she realized the smell came from a candle, not from the kitchen. Mr. Reed became serious. He said, "I want to test your faith." Then he showed them 2 doors. One door had the word belief, the other had the word disbelief. He told them, "You must choose one door to leave this house." The sisters were confused. They prayed quietly and finally walked through the belief door. To their shock, both doors led to the same place, a cold, dark basement. There, they saw an old woman sitting on a chair. Mr. Reed called her the Prophet. He gave her a piece of pie, saying it was poisoned. She ate it without fear. The sisters watched in silence as she collapsed. Mr. Reed smiled and said, "She will return with messages from the afterlife." Questions 16 to 20 match the person with the correct action. Write the correct letter, A to E, next to each number. A few minutes later, there was a knock at the door. A church elder appeared. He had heard that the sisters were visiting Mr. Reed's house and wanted to make sure they were safe. The elder asked politely if everything was fine, but Mr. Reed quickly smiled and said, "Yes, they are perfectly comfortable." The elder trusted him and left without checking further. Inside the basement, Mr. Reed continued his game. He stood in front of the sisters and repeated, "You must prove your belief." He pointed again to the doors and reminded them about their choice. His voice was loud and demanding, making the sisters very nervous. Meanwhile, Sister Paxton whispered to Barnes that the smell of pie was still in the air. She realized it came only from a candle, not from the kitchen. This detail made her even more suspicious of Mr. Reed's tricks. The Prophet, the old woman, then became the center of attention. Mr. Reed gave her pie, which he said was poisoned. She pretended to accept it as if it had great power. Everyone watched in silence as she ate it. Later, when she opened her eyes again, she spoke in a slow voice about the afterlife. But secretly, while Mr. Reed was distracted, She leaned toward the sisters and whispered quickly, "It's not real." This short message made them doubt everything Mr. Reed had said.
Sister Barnes becomes suspicious of the prophet's resurrection. She believes it was staged to manipulate them. Barnes and Paxton plan to confront Mr. Reed. However, Mr. Reed anticipates their move and attacks them. He slashes Barnes's throat, leaving Paxton alone and terrified. Mr. Reed tries to convince Paxton that the world is a simulation. He removes a small metal object from Barnes's arm, claiming it's a microchip. Paxton recognizes it as a contraceptive implant, realizing Mr. Reed is lying. Paxton discovers a hidden chute and climbs down. She finds a room filled with women in cages, revealing Mr. Reed's true belief that controlling others is the essence of religion. Paxton stabs Mr. Reed with a letter opener, but he stabs her back. As they both bleed, Paxton prays, showing her faith remains strong.
You will hear two students, Anna and Michael, talking with their professor about the psychological meaning of events in the movie Heretic. First, you have some time to look at questions 21 to 25. Now listen carefully and answer questions 21 to 25. Sentence completion. Anna begins, "Professor, in the basement scene, we thought the old woman, the prophet, really came back from death. She spoke very clearly." The professor interrupts. "Yes, but think carefully. What did she actually whisper? Did she confirm the miracle?" Michael replies, "Oh yes, she whispered something like, 'It's not real.' At first, I thought, she meant her pain was not real, but then I understood she was saying the resurrection was false." The professor continues, "Exactly. That whisper suggests she was acting. Mr. Reed used her to manipulate the sisters." Anna adds, "Sister Barnes noticed something too. She became suspicious when she saw the woman's body move too quickly. Almost like someone pretending." Michael agrees. "Yes, and later Mr. Reed removed a small object from Barnes's arm. He said it was proof of a simulation. I first believed it was a microchip for control." The professor shakes his head. "No, that's incorrect. It was simply a contraceptive implant. Mr. Reed used it to confuse them." Finally, Anna summarizes, "So Barnes and Paxton were facing not just physical danger, but also deep psychological pressure. Their faith was constantly tested by lies." The professor continues the discussion with a more analytical approach. He explains, "In psychology, we call Mr. Reed's methods control strategies. Each one was designed to make the sisters doubt themselves." Michael says, "The first strategy was very clear. He locked the doors and cut off the phone signal. That was isolation." Anna adds, "Another was when he offered them two doors. Belief and disbelief, but both led to the same basement. That's a trick of false choice." The professor nods. "Good. What about the prophet eating poison pie?" Michael answers, "That looked like fear conditioning. He showed danger, but also demanded obedience." Anna thinks and says, "When he removed the implant, that was a method of creating confusion. He gave false explanations to make them lose trust in reality." Finally, the professor concludes, "And the most powerful strategy was control through symbolism, like the candle with the blueberry scent. It looked harmless, but it carried hidden meaning."
Part 4. The Final Confrontation. Mr. Reed prepares to kill Paxton. Barnes, who is still alive, strikes him with a plank of wood, killing him. Barnes dies shortly after, sacrificing herself to save Paxton. Paxton escapes through a window into the snowy landscape. A butterfly lands on her hand, symbolizing Barnes's earlier wish to return as a butterfly to comfort loved ones. The butterfly's sudden appearance offers Paxton a moment of peace and hope.
You will hear a university lecture on psychology and sociology. The lecturer discusses two topics. First, the Milgram experiment on obedience, and then how power and manipulation work in small groups or cults. First, you have some time to look at questions 31 to 35. Good morning, everyone. Today, we'll begin with a famous psychology study, the Milgram experiment. This experiment was designed in the 1960s to test obedience to authority. Participants thought they were helping with a memory test. In fact, they were asked to give electric shocks to another person who was really an actor. The important features of the study show how ordinary people can obey harmful instructions. For example, the shock generator looked very realistic, with labels from mild to dangerous. This feature created a strong illusion of authority. Another feature was the presence of the researcher in a lab coat. The coat gave a sense of scientific legitimacy, making participants less likely to question the task. Third, the proximity of the victim also mattered. When the actor was in another room, obedience was higher. But when he was in the same room, participants were less willing to continue. The clear instructions, repeated calmly by the researcher, acted as pressure. Phrases like, "Please continue," and "The experiment requires you to go on," pushed participants further. Finally, the payment offered at the beginning gave a sense of obligation. People felt they must finish the task since they had accepted money. So, these features work together to explain why many participants went as far as delivering shocks labeled dangerous. Next, let's look at power and manipulation in small groups or cults. Sociologists explain that these groups often begin with a charismatic leader who uses charm to attract followers. At first, the leader may speak of freedom or hope, but gradually introduces control. One method is isolation. Members are kept away from friends and family. Without outside contact, they depend fully on the group for approval. Another technique is fear and reward. Leaders punish members for small mistakes, but also praise them for loyalty. This constant cycle keeps members emotionally unstable. Symbolism is also important. For example, special clothing or repeated rituals create a strong sense of identity. These may look harmless, but they make questioning more difficult. Finally, cults often rewrite reality. They tell members that outsiders are dangerous or evil. This technique creates an us versus them mentality. Overall, manipulation in small groups is not about physical chains, but about shaping the way people think and feel.